So I binged the brand new Netflix series, The Waterfront. Is it worth your time? Let's discuss.
I wouldn't bother getting up. I'm just gonna hit you again.
Jesus Christ, Dad!
So as their storied North Carolina fishing empire decays, the damaged Buckleys grapple to revive their imperiled maritime heritage. This is a family drug drama in the vein of Ozark. It feels like a show trying to replicate the success of an Ozark. There's even a little bit of Yellowstone in there. Outer Range, the Amazon Prime show. So usually there's a family at the center of all of this drama. In this case, that family is the Buckleys. I love this cast, by the way. Melissa Benoist, Holt McCallany from Mindhunter fame, and Jake Weary as Kane. You could say he's from It Follows, but I'm going to say he's from Fred. Do you remember him and Fred? So good. Now, Holt's Harlan and Jake's Kane, that's the father-son dynamic I was really looking forward to, because normally with a show like this, you've got either the father who is the head of all of the business, good or bad, going on, but in this show's case, he's already kind of passed it down to his son, who's trying his very best not to see his father, but as we progress through the first few episodes, we start to see shades of his dad in him, and there's even a point where his wife tells him, whether you see it or not, you're becoming your father, and I'm not going to do what your mother does and just cater to all of the ridiculousness, because that's what Belle, who's played by Maria Bello, does with McCallany's character. She basically she doesn't encourage it. She's trying to change him and his drinking problem and all of his issues. But you know, the first time we see him, he's out doing something horrible, and his wife's just like, yeah, I know, but you okay? Kane, the son, also a happily married guy, but one of his old flames comes back into his life in Jenna, who, kind of takes a little bit of the spotlight away from the main story. And there are a couple of times when characters come into this show where it really could have been a way more focused show than it was, but then you have Jenna who comes in. That first time we see her and his dynamic, it kind of feels like a Hallmark movie. It goes from something that's trying to be a bit more serious to cheesy and over-the-top dialogue that does not suit their characters, nor the circumstances, nor the situation that they are in, and a character that pulls you away from a plot that feels a little more important. Now, the main plot at hand here is generic, and we've seen it 1,000 times before. There's always a main family that's involved in the drug trade, and they get themselves in deep. They have to find their way out. But at the same time, that's far more interesting than this romance that is sparking. And frankly, I just don't think the dialogue worked in those moments. The characters are charming in their own way, and I do like some of the performances, but all in all, there were so many characters that this show could have done without, at least in the first season. Sean, the bartender, another one where they take that story in such an unneeded, unnecessary direction, and all it does is pull you away from the main point of the show. That could have taken 6 episodes to tell, as opposed to what we actually got, and something that feels a little more stretched out. And whenever we would go away from the main plot, as generic as it was, I'm thinking, no, that's more interesting. Can we go back to that? And obviously with a show like this, you're going to get all of the conventional character tropes within the confines of our family and outside of that. Can you trust this police officer? Is the sheriff a guy you can count on? Are there people around you that are going to stab you in the back and betray you? And you get all of that in the first 2 to 3 episodes. And they'll do this thing all throughout. And I mean, every episode, it feels like, where they bait you into believing something crazy is about to happen. And then all of a sudden the story turns around. They're like, actually not. I think of one instance, I believe it was at the end of episode 2, and I'm mimicking it. I won't spoil what the choice is. Do something crazy to a character, and then it's resolved first thing in the next episode, and you're thinking, oh, well, that could have been horrible. And that happens numerous times throughout the show, to where it feels like by the end they didn't really make a drastic decision. They just teased you with a bunch of them. And I'm thinking, man, this show, for a show that actually gets really bloody and violent and does manage to catch you off guard in different ways, they never fully embraced some of those crazy choices that could have changed the landscape of the entire show. And when I think of a show like this that works, Ozark obviously comes to mind, and they would bait and switch you, but they would often deliver on those crazy moments and absolutely slap you in the face as a viewer. And I like to be slapped in the face as a viewer. and spit on. No.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry.
And I'm not saying the show is bad inherently. Again, the performances are good. Melissa Benoist, you do find yourself rooting for her as you get further into the show. Holt is a phenomenal actor, almost too good for the dialogue he's given at times. He's rough and tough and kind of knows how to be a badass, but he's also just a really bad person, and he's trying to get his son to act in his manner. And anytime we see his son do something similar to what he would have done, he's like, "Good job, son," and then hands him a liquor bottle. I'm just like, that's bad.
This is bad. This is very bad.
So it's hard to root for certain characters that you're really supposed to care about because they don't give you that character trait that they establish with our example family at the beginning of Ozark, especially here because you're really thrown right into this. You're meeting our characters as they are discovering the situation that they are in with the boat, with the drug money, and in that first episode, you start getting twists with characters you thought you could trust, and I'm like, I wish there was more time to establish this. I wish we weren't just thrown into the madness. We could have gotten some time to learn who this family is, the family that's at the center of the town. When Jenna's husband comes in, he's like, "Yeah, your name's everywhere," and I'm thinking, oh yeah, I guess it was. But I didn't really get to know that in the first few episodes. We're just thrown into the madness, and so the buildup just isn't there. And then when they could have built some elements up of their characters all throughout, they decide to introduce other characters and plot points and stories that I just didn't really care as much about. It's a Hallmark Ozark. That's what it feels like to me, which isn't the worst thing ever, but there were just so many moments that felt a little over-the-top cheesy. When you're getting some of that romantic dialogue between characters, some music starts playing, and you're like, I don't know if this... Because 5 minutes ago, someone got shot in the head, and I just don't know if these two things fit together. And yeah, when you got a family like this that keeps digging themselves deeper, they're getting caught up in these drug runs, you've got to find characters to latch onto. In the beginning, I didn't know what Benoist's character was going to offer. She's kind of the odd man or woman out of the group, so I did find myself rooting for her. And then you've got... Later on, as we progress further, the introduction of Topher Grace into this story, who's just kind of this weaselly dirtbag. You don't know if he's going to deliver on the promises or the threats that he makes. He's this sleazy guy who I believe is giving a good performance. But again, I don't know if his dialogue was fully up to par for how he was going for it. And that threatening persona, I'm not sure if I was fully buying into that or trusting what he was saying, and I think some characters were catching on to that as well. Don't get me wrong, there were some dramatic elements that I thoroughly enjoyed, some moments from our characters that I was on board with, and even though I didn't care about the family as much as I did the performances, I do believe people are doing a really nice, solid job. And so this is one of those shows where you can turn it on. You don't have to dive too deep because it's very easy to pick up what's going on and then pick up on where they are headed ultimately. But at the end of the day, a little shallow, melodramatic. It's that kind of show which some people love to binge, and that's okay. The tone is occasionally all over the place. My wife watched 2 episodes, and she's like, you can finish it. And I'm thinking, oh, that's not a good sign. I don't think I fully felt that way. I at least wanted to see what was going to happen. I like that father-son duo, but I completely understand where she's coming from. So before I give you my score, what's your favorite Netflix show of the year so far? And dropping that thumbs up for more Netflix reviews would be awesome. The Waterfront is an overly dramatic and unnecessarily complicated story that will provide some viewers the comfort food they are looking for. There is a lot to like within some of the performances, but the shallow story ultimately becomes its undoing, and I don't know how that's going to transition us into a season 2, but I do enjoy this cast, so I'd love to know what you're thinking about the Waterfront. I thought this was based on something like a book, but it's not. So that's something random. I don't know. See you soon.